Dana Perino, one of the most trusted and steadfast voices in American media, has spent decades shaping the nation's narrative. From the charged, chaotic halls of the White House briefing room to powerhouse programs like The Five and America's Newsroom, she remains the calm at the center of every storm. A woman who stood behind the podium during America's most turbulent moments, with a composure that felt almost superhuman. Yet, few remember that this extraordinary woman started life far from power in a quiet town in Wyoming. Raised without privilege, she carved her own path to Washington through relentless discipline, grit, and a will forged in steel, qualities no spotlight could ever truly create. And now, at 53, behind the radiant smile that America has come to love, Dana faces a chapter more painful than any media battle she's ever fought. A chapter shadowed by quiet losses and wounds only her heart truly understands. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, a gesture of respect for the woman who rose from obscurity to become a pillar of a nation, and who now stands face to face with a darkness no camera has ever been able to capture. Grief seldom shows itself. It creeps in, subtle and silent, much like the Wyoming wind that shaped Dana Perino's early years. Born on May 9, 1972 in Evanston, a town so quiet even its silence felt bruised by the cold, Dana entered a world where resilience was not something taught but something inhaled, breath by breath, as if the very land itself whispered to her to endure what she had yet to understand. The sky above her stretched out in an almost unforgiving beauty, vast enough to make a small child feel both cradled and dwarfed under the weight of existence. Though she lived there for only 2 years, those brief early moments were enough for the land to leave its mark, its solitude, its patience, its quiet demand that even the smallest of souls learn to endure the constant wind. Long before she knew the word grief, Dana felt it in her bones, in the way the wind never stopped, in the way the horizon seemed to recede no matter how bravely one pursued it. "Wyoming lives in my bones," the young woman would whisper years later, remembering a home she could barely recall but could never fully leave. It was a place she loved as a girl, a place she lost, a place that taught her too early that life could rip you from the very things that defined you, long before you ever learned how to hold on. When her family moved to Denver, Colorado, Dana stepped into a childhood shaped by modest means and quiet expectations. The Perino household was never loud or rich. It was a place where responsibility was carried without complaint, where silence trained the heart more than words ever could. Her father, Leo, became her first mentor, unfolding the newspaper each night, teaching her that the world revealed itself only to those who paid attention, and that her voice, however small, mattered. Her mother, steady and warm, taught her the other half of survival: emotional discipline, finding order amidst uncertainty, and the strength to endure without applause. Looking back, Dana would understand that these seemingly invisible lessons formed the spine of her adulthood. Beneath those quiet rituals, however, the first tremors of her inner life began. She learned to contain her feelings, to measure her steps, to read a room before daring to speak. A quiet child, already mastering the art of surviving a world that rarely softened its edges for her. Every summer, Dana returned to her grandfather's ranch in Wyoming, a place breathtaking in its vastness, yet unforgiving in its demands. At 9, she would rise before dawn to carry water, clear stalls choked with dust, and mend fences under a sun that showed no mercy. The ranch made no concessions for her age or size, but in its harshness, Dana found an unexpected refuge. A world where effort had meaning, where routine created structure, and where strength was not something earned as honor, but something required simply to survive. "The ranch taught me grit," Dana would recall, but that grit was never worn like a badge of pride. It was simply the way to survive each day. Back in Denver, modest means weighed on Dana like a burden no child should bear, teaching her to take only what she needed and earn everything she hoped for. By her early teens, she was rising for pre-dawn shifts at a PBS affiliate and working late nights at a radio station, learning discipline, patience, and steadiness that would define her. One treasured item, an illustrated children's Bible, vanished during a family move, leaving a hollow ache. Years later, a viewer mailed her the same edition, and as the flood of memories hit, the worn pages, the familiar illustrations, the quiet mornings curled up with it, she finally allowed herself to cry. "It felt like a piece of my childhood came home," she whispered. That loss, that ache, was a stark reminder that even the strongest adults carried the silent heartbreaks of their earliest years, shaping the resilience they would one day show to the world. Every ounce of order, every shard of discipline, every measure of composure under pressure that America would one day admire was hammered into Dana here, in these unforgiving landscapes, shaped by work, solitude, and the quiet demands of survival. The silence of a household built on restraint, the dust and labor of her grandfather's ranch, the dim radio booths demanding early independence. Dana didn't become strong because life was easy. She became strong because life required it. Early, quietly, consistently. Before she stood behind the White House podium, Dana Perino had already survived the hardest lesson a child can learn. To stay steady in a world that shifts without warning, to hold herself with grace when no one is there to catch her, and to transform quiet endurance into a force that would one day inspire millions. Every extraordinary journey begins not with victory, but with a crucible of uncertainty, hunger, and relentless effort. Dana Perino's rise in American politics and media didn't begin at the White House podium. It began in quiet rooms, dimly lit studios, and cold, unfamiliar streets, where she learned that resilience is forged through hardship. After leaving Wyoming's wide skies and Denver's humble comforts, Dana entered adulthood carrying invisible scars from her childhood. The burden of self-doubt, the constant lesson that to survive, one must first anchor oneself. She learned early to be a peacekeeper, an observer, someone who could remain calm while the world around her changed in unpredictable ways. These skills, though subtle, would become the scaffolding of her career. At university, Dana's life was already a study in both brawn and mind. She majored in mass communications with minors in Spanish and political science, moving through days and nights that blended classroom lectures with hands-on survival. While her peers wandered through carefree weekends, Dana worked late-night shifts at a radio station, the hum of machinery and the flickering green glow of control boards her only companions. She learned to keep her voice steady when no one was listening, to fill the empty spaces with authority she had yet to claim. By day, she contributed to a tiny PBS station, often alone, setting up cameras, writing scripts, and running tapes. Learning the precise discipline of making stories matter, even when no one else's attention was guaranteed. Hunger, exhaustion, and doubt became constant companions. There were mornings when she had little more than coffee and a borrowed bagel to begin her 12-hour shifts. Then came Washington, a city cold and indifferent, much like the Wyoming plains, but far less forgiving. Dana arrived as a quiet staff assistant, answering phones, taking notes, and carrying documents through marble hallways where no one knew her name. She had no family nearby, no backing, no safety net, only a determination forged through years of modest living. Her opportunity came when she became press secretary for Congressman Dan Schaefer, a role far larger than anyone expected for a 25-year-old woman surrounded by seasoned aides twice her age. Reporters tested her. Staffers underestimated her. Every press inquiry felt like a small trial by fire. But Dana wrote with precision, briefed with clarity, and learned to stay calm under questioning, skills that would later define her on a national stage. In a city that rewards volume, Dana built credibility through quiet mastery. Her rise was never fast, but every inch was earned, every step tempered by effort no one ever saw. The first real blow came in 1998 when Congressman Dan Schaefer announced his retirement. The small team that had been Dana's world vanished almost overnight. At 26, she tasted the raw despair of losing not just a job, but a sense of purpose and belonging. The city that had promised opportunity suddenly became a landscape of uncertainty. It was at this fragile moment, suspended between fear and hope, that she met Peter. On a flight, a man older, divorced twice, whose presence promised a personal anchor, but led to professional exile. Within 11 months, Dana married and left for England, stepping into a world where her career in journalism vanished, replaced by quiet afternoons in a foreign city where every street reminded her of what she had left behind. Yet, in the shadows of loss, Dana's resilience deepened.